Okay, so Dave is saying that the audio is fine, and we have 17 viewers. So, yeah.
Nice, we're just holding on for everyone to join us. We still have 1 minute to go. In the meantime, you all can tell us where you're joining us from in the chat, so we know who we are talking to. Hello, Aubrian.
Hi. Do we have educators and parents?
And feel free to tell us where you're joining us from. Oh, Antigua, wonderful. Welcome. Right. Hello, Yolande. Right, so it's 5 o'clock now, so we're going to start. So we'd just like to thank everybody for spending their afternoon with us to discuss a very important topic. We all know that we have to discuss what's happening because school is not going to be reopening in its usual scheduled time. So we just wanted to take this opportunity to discuss a remote learning plan in the Caribbean context. So you can feel free to leave your comments or questions. Hi, Sean from Barbados.
Hello.
We would like you to feel free to comment or ask us questions while we are going, and we'll try our very best to answer them. So my name is Leanne Pear, and this is Jadel Holder Remy. And we just wanted to start a discussion about remote learning in the Caribbean context, as we face the reality of the school buildings remaining closed for part or all of the third term. Many questions and suggestions have arisen with the shift in context, and it is new territory for all of us. So we just wanted to share some strategies which we think could work for our region. So firstly, we want to highlight that remote learning is not the same as regular e-learning or distance learning in this context. Usually online learning is a choice. Normally it's chosen by adult learners. And of course, it would have been prepared and tested months in advance by experts. Educators have been called upon to learn new skills and implement immediately. And we really want to take this opportunity to applaud you for the magnanimous efforts that you have made. But unfortunately, we've been trying to build a plane while flying it, and so many of our efforts have crashed.
Right. Hi, Marshall. Welcome. So continuing from where Leanne left off, we know that in the Caribbean, we are very exam focused, and many disruptions have occurred as a result of the shutting of schools. So many regions have had to postpone their secondary entrance exams. CSEC and CAPE had to adjust their examination formats and their examination dates. And for many teachers, students, and parents, this has been a great period of uncertainty. So we're going to jump into what we are suggesting to help education in the Caribbean during this time. We want you to consider that school is not just a place for academic development, so the focus cannot just be on exams. School really helps to build the relational and the social aspect for the student. For many, schools represent stability, it represents safety, socialization, and relationship building. I mean, if we think about it, that's the place where students spend most of their time. So we both believe that schools need to have a period of proper planning and consideration of their school environment. It can't be that everyone does what he or she prefers because that's just going to cause a chaotic rollout. Our suggestion is that schools consider maybe starting school in May and use the rest of April to create a proper remote learning plan. A proper rollout needs to be done so that students are able to continue learning, but without the additional stresses. Right? So there's lots of information, there are many sites that are available, and it can be very overwhelming for teachers and for students. So we just wanted to highlight how you begin the process to complete a remote learning plan, and that will ensure a more systematic, structured approach moving forward. Now, we're not claiming that this is going to solve all of your issues, but we do think it would help create some formality to the process. So we've created a 5-step guide, which are key considerations to creating this. So Leanne will start off with step 1.
All right, so step 1, the first and most important thing is collecting data. It is really important that we begin by knowing what our students have, what our teachers have, what is available, what might prevent them from learning. And I just wanted to quote something that I read recently from UNICEF, March 23rd. They stated in the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean that many countries started implementing distant learning modalities, including courses through digital platforms. However, these modalities are not guaranteed throughout the region, nor do all families have access to them, especially the most vulnerable. And that is something we really want teachers and administrators to consider, that not all of our students have the technology available, neither do all of our teachers have the technology which is available. So what we need to know is what our staff members and students have access to before making decisions going forward. Each school on each class may be unique. We need to know what tools they have and their functionality. We need to know if there are challenges at home that may impede remote learning at home for both staff and students. So what we have done, we've created a form which you can share with your parents via WhatsApp, email, on a school's website. You can edit it if you wish, so we'll share that at the end of the session. If your students do not have internet access, the form is set up in such a way that a teacher or administrator can contact that student directly and can fill out that form for that student or the parent by inputting the data. It's a Google form, so the good thing about it is the data is collated for you and it can be sorted through by different elements. What we are suggesting is that a few persons on staff be selected to ensure that all of this data is collected within a few days. Once you have collected that data, you can then begin analyzing, and then you can begin to implement the plan, which we are going to talk about in a few minutes, that your school needs. And we wanted to stress on specifics, that it is your school's plan.
Right. So the data has been collected, it's been analyzed. What next? The next step is to decide technology, no technology, a blend of technology. What are we going to do? Although we are all facing this pandemic, the reality is that we are weathering the storm in different boats. Not all teachers and students have the same level of access. The digital divide is real and it has to be taken into consideration. In the Caribbean, there are several students who still do not have personal devices, especially those at the primary school level. Additionally, even if they have devices, we have students and staff who have spotty Wi-Fi or have to share devices. So at some point, schools need to make a plan that best suits their context and the context of their stakeholders. A school that's in a remote area with little access to broadband is not going to have the same plan as one in an urban area, with access. And with that in mind and the data in hand, we have 3 possibilities. The first possibility is that we can have a completely online plan. And in this setting, all students, all staff members have access to Wi-Fi and they have access to functional devices. Here, I would like to make a plug maybe for our Caribbean network providers, to really assist us during this time to provide free access, at the very least, to educational websites. I know that there are some companies that have already started providing free services and we commend them, but we would like all of them to contribute to educating our children during this time. So administrators, please petition your ministry officials to plead your case. The second possibility is a completely offline plan. This would be in areas where there's no access at all. In this situation, where it's still allowed, packets can be created, obviously observing proper social distancing protocols, and the packets can then be sent via postal services to the students. In addition to that, there would be the use of radio programs, television programs. We have those going on now in Trinidad and Tobago and in other Caribbean islands. And this is what we'd have to employ during this time. Additionally, if you're not hearing from students, phones can be used to check in. So that's the completely offline option. And finally, there's a hybrid option, and this might work for most schools. And this can work where it's like a 50-50 case. Maybe they have devices, but they don't have Wi Fi, or some have devices, some don't have. And in this case, we would create online resources, which can also be put into an offline packet. Maybe there are videos that can be downloaded and sent home on flash drives. And again, we would partner with businesses to provide some of these resources. Whatever is in the online packet, though, needs to provide the opportunity for students to achieve the same objectives as students who are using an online packet. And depending on the numbers, you can have a phone check-in with the students who are offline. And again, we say work with local providers, so maybe we could get those courses free or at a discounted rate. So after choosing whichever your situation is, online, offline, or hybrid, the next step would be to select your tools.
Mm-hmm.
When thinking about tools, they need to be accessible, they need to be easy to use, and they need to be age appropriate. Additionally, we would say stick to tools that you and your students are familiar with, and there's no need to choose 1,000 tools. Maybe one or two tools for the most would be all that you need. And when you choose your tools, be mindful of tools that minors are authorized to use. So communicate with parents, make sure that it's okay for them for you to use these tools with their children. Now, during this time, a lot of platforms, a lot of apps have been offering their services for free, and that's great. But what can happen is that after time, they will then start to charge for it again. So, our suggestion is try to use tools that were already free beforehand and that are going to remain free, because you don't want to get comfortable with a platform or get comfortable with a tool. And then when the situation is over, you then have to go and learn a new tool and teach your students a new tool. When choosing a platform, use one throughout the entire school. So we don't want students and teachers to have to learn multiple platforms. So for science, you're using one platform, and then for Spanish, another one, and for math, another one. That could be confusing. So we choose one platform that everyone is using. And after choosing that platform, before rolling it out to teachers, to students, sorry, teachers need to be trained in the use of the platform. And then think about it when rolling it out to students. Don't expect students to automatically know how to use it. There's going to be some time that is spent where we're saying, this is the platform we're using, this is how we use it, and we teach students to use it. Just like you would teach students what to do in your classroom. Please remember that if you're having synchronous sessions, to keep them private, something like Zoom, you can lock your room, you can have a waiting room, that kind of thing, so that your sessions are safe. And finally, because we're online, we know that the lines of communication are going to be open, but there have to be boundaries, just like you'd have boundaries in a physical classroom space. So you can do something like virtual hours, or if students have your email, you know that you're only checking emails between this time and that time. You can have WhatsApp, you can have Zoom meetings, but make sure that your boundaries are communicated.
So I know Jadal just shared quite a lot of information. I'm seeing some of you saying that you lost volume. Probably suggest they reopen their pages.
Yes, Dave, I do agree. I'm now seeing that you're saying it's one of the most important considerations, having individualized plans. So even though we may all be in the same country or we may be in a similar area, depending on where we are, you would have to have a specific plan.
All right. So, okay, it seems as though some of us are not hearing. Possibly just try reopening the page, and that may help. All right, so I know that was quite a lot. And of course, you don't need to worry. We will be sharing a summary of all of this at the end of it. So you can have something to move forward with as you go and you discuss with your schools. So you will get that at the end of the session. So step 3. So we have discussed 2 steps so far. One, collection of data. And the second one was looking at whether we use technology or whether we don't use technology. The third step is really significant as well, pedagogy. It is really important when contemplating how to teach during this time that we bear in mind that we cannot just transfer what we normally do in the brick and mortar class setting to the online environment. We still need to consider the age of the children we teach, even more so as we transition them to a new environment. I mean, think about how long they normally take to adjust to a new class level or to a new teacher. Well, this is no different. So try starting them with something which is comforting and familiar to them. We want to talk about how long we should keep our children or expect them to be on screen. And this is really very important. So there are some suggested maximum screen times if you will be using technology with the children. And these were based on WHO, and I'm going to put it up on the screen. And these were based on recommendation from the WHO, as well as attention spans of children. So let me hide it. All right. So basically, what they have suggested is that if a child is in kindergarten, they should not be on screen for more than 30 minutes. And that 30 minutes does not have to be consecutively. You can break that up into small segments, 5-minute segments, 10-minute segments. But in terms of teaching at the kindergarten level, certainly you should not be on teaching them for more than 30 minutes per day. For first year to standard 1, which would be approximately ages 5 to 7 or 8, they suggest 45 minutes. Again, remember when you're teaching, the teacher should not be speaking all the time. So you may want to have 10 minutes of class and then you send them off to do a task. You come back, you do a 15-minute session. You can break up that 45 minutes into reasonable bits so that it is digestible for our students. For standards 2 and 3, you can go as far as 60 minutes. And again, we are not encouraging you to sit for 60 minutes on the screen with the children, but you can have videos, you can have probably a 10-minute live session, but you can break it up again. For standards 4 to 5, which would be probably ages 9 to 11 or 12 in some cases, we are suggesting 90 minutes. And again, this will be shared. Forms 1 to 3, the suggestion is 30 minutes per teacher, a maximum of 2 hours per day. And for forms 4 to 6, because they're a little older, 30 minutes per teacher, 3 hours maximum per day. So this tells you, and Jadelle will speak to that in a little bit, that the timetable cannot remain the same. So we also want to bear in mind, apart from screen time, that parents are working too. This is really a very essential consideration, including for us, the teachers. We have children at home, we have to homeschool, but we are also required to work. There are many parents who are working from home 8 to 4. And so when you are thinking of the work that you're going to set, it needs to be more independent learning tasks. And you might say, well, how do I set independent learning tasks for a 3-year-old or 4-year-old or 5-year-old? And you can suggest that they color, they draw, they have to get a leaf and probably figure out what a leaf does, or they have to go do an observation and probably have 5 minutes of recording. In that way, the parent is not required to sit with the child for the entire period of time. We also want to encourage project-based learning, things that they can see around the house and use. Choice boards, give them a variety of things that they can do, and they can choose which one of the activities they are going to do with the same objective being accomplished. Let's encourage our children to read during this time, and read offline, please. Let us encourage them to build a puzzle. Let them get creative. Let them figure out how to use all those toilet paper rolls that we're collecting. Let them figure out how to use them in our school work. And so we want to encourage you not to lecture. So give the students examples, allow them to go off and work on whatever it is. Keep the lines of communication open though, because we do want to make sure that they are doing their work. So find a way where they're going to upload, find a way where they're going to let you know that they have accomplished the task. So in that way, you can have specific office hours or emails which you answer, discussion boards, etc. So I'm seeing a question here from Sune. She's saying, but I am teaching Form 4s and they take about 20 minutes to get on and settle. What do I do? And so, Sune, to answer your question, remember that this is a new environment for them. And just like you would have classroom rules, you would want to spend your first session establishing your expectations for your class. So before you get into any form of teaching, what we are suggesting is that you sit with the students and actually come up with what are your expectations, and also communicate that with parents, because we need to make sure that parents are also aware of what is happening at the school. So, and of course, make sure that your session is so interactive that the students want to pay attention. Additionally, having asynchronous learning sometimes will avoid having to settle them by posting a video of yourself for a 10-minute period and then asking them to do something and giving them a time frame. And please, be reasonable with the time frame, because remember, they have other tasks to do, and give them a time frame in which they have to submit. So that's one suggestion. We really want to emphasize not grading during this period. It is a difficult period for many of our students. It is a difficult period for many of our parents and even for teachers. So we want to discourage grading. What we want to do is encourage assessment of attendance, because we do want to see what happens at the end of the period. So we want to assess how many of our students are engaging. What progress are they making? We really want you to emphasize learning over testing. And that is really important at this time. We know in the Caribbean, we tend to be very grade focused and exam based, but during this period, we really want, as a Caribbean region, to re-examine education and to really focus on learning versus grading.
Right. Thank you, Leanne. Hi, everybody. I'm back. I'm seeing a question from Aubrey Ann where she's asking, how do we move forward since many of these steps have been overlooked? So what we would have suggested in the earlies is that schools take some time to plan now. So most schools will be closed because of the Easter vacation. So we suggest that we take time to plan now. I know we have been building this plane and flying the plane at the same time. So we need to pause. We need to stop flying the plane, and we need to build, and we need to figure out what we are going to do and then put these things into place. Jacqueline is saying, how do we encourage students who may be home on their own and are not motivated to be a part of the remote classroom? So one of the things that we would have suggested, Leanne would have suggested, is making, and we'll get to Alvin's question after, sorry. Right, so one of the things that we would have suggested is making the class interactive, making it fun, having stuff for the students to do that they will want to do. And by doing that, the student would be even more encouraged to come into the class, even if their parents aren't home with them. Additionally, if there's a particular student that you're not hearing from a lot, we can think about calling them, because we may think about why is it they're not motivated. If the student is home alone, where's their parents? Are they concerned that the parent is out working? Are they having to see about their younger siblings? Those are things that we need to consider, because yes, the student may not be motivated, but why isn't the student motivated? And most of the time, just like when we're in the physical classroom, when you get to the bottom of it, when we figure out why the student is acting in whatever way, then we are able to solve the problem. So we need to continue to have that connection with our students, even though it's remote. Find ways, whether it's calling, whether it's speaking to the parents, reach out to them via email, WhatsApp, do whatever it is, so that we can find out what is going on.
And Jadelle, before you move on, I just want to add that building relationship is really important when we are engaging in any kind of remote learning. The students are no longer going to be seeing us regularly, so we want to reach out to them. And we're going to talk about it a little later on when we speak about our social emotional learning. But relationship building is going to be really significant at this point in time. And it's, of course, something we are stressing even during COVID. We do not want students to be isolated, as well as staff members, right? I could take Alvin's question.
Okay.
Would the pre-recorded video be viewed as part of the screen time? Yes, Alvin, when we say screen time, we mean any time that the students are on the computer. We really do not want them sitting for hours in front of the computer screen. It is something that we discourage when they're gaming and so on. So, of course, we know the impacts of it, especially we want to discourage, and that will be something we want to discuss with parents. The time that students are going on their screens, of course, we want to discourage things like just before bed, having to go onto a screen, or, during times like while eating and so on. So we really just want to have reduced screen time. And when there is screen time, make sure that it's impactful. And Brian, yes, affective domain is very critical, and we are going to get to that very soon.
Okay, so we've discussed 3 steps so far, and based on what I've been seeing on Facebook, step 4 seems to be something that teachers are very concerned about. I've been seeing posts about teachers up at night trying to figure out the content, because it's one thing when we're in classes teaching, but another thing when you have to take all of your resources and then now make them appropriate for online, make it fun for online, make it interactive. So teachers are doing quite a bit. So step 4, we're going to look at content. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's absolutely no need. I know that we're in the Caribbean and a lot of the content out there may not be specifically tailored to our context, sorry, but there is content out there that's tailored to our Caribbean curricula, sorry, and I suggest that you use it. So CXC has recently released their Learning Hub. The Ministry of Education in Trinidad and Tobago has an LMS. Notes Master has the curriculum that covers TSEC, CBQ, and CAPE. They released a COVID-specific curriculum. Pennacool.com has things for us. Flow Study has things for us. So I would suggest that we go on to these different sites and take this content. Some of them, the content can be taken and it can be tailored specifically for your class. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, look at this content and see if it can work for your context. Additionally, we earlier saw that learners should really only have a certain amount of screen time. Wait, sorry, before I get to that, let me just finish with the content. When we're talking about content, we also need to think about sharing. So we're going to go and we're going to take content from these places. But what we can also do is assign one teacher to cover a particular year group. So how it works now is that we may have 5 classes in a year group and different teachers teach in the classes, and teachers may be coming up with their own material. But now we need to work smart. So what that means is that you can have one teacher cover one topic or one theme and share it with all the teachers who may be teaching that year group. And that means that we have less work. So that teacher can go and pull the resources together and share it with everyone. We suggest that you use PLCs to reach out to teachers from other schools. They may have resources. And please, when you do your resources, share, because we are all in this together and everybody's looking for content. So the more content that is out there, the easier it will be for us when it comes to creating our lessons. Nicely, the Commonwealth of Learning, they have some resources. They have released a whole list of resources. OER, Open Educational Resources. That means that it's free to use. You don't have to pay for it. Most of it is already credited, so you don't have to worry about crediting the author. And that link Leanne will share later on. So again, let's not reinvent the wheel, because that's going to frustrate us. We know that differentiating content is important, so we need to do so. And we can allow students to choose how they want to cover the content that we have curated. So give them agency by giving them options. Do they want to do it offline? Give them an offline option, give them an online option. Remember the different types of learners and have different things that they can do according to their learning style. We earlier spoke about the length of time that we have students on screen, and because we have them on for a shorter time, consider chunking, which is breaking up the lesson into shorter pieces so that they can take it in, and that would work with the shorter periods of screen time. And of course, interactive and fun is very important. Now, again, when we're talking about content, we may be wondering, but if we have shorter periods of time, how am I going to cover my entire scheme of work? We need to think about covering the foundational principles of our course or subject rather than trying to cover everything. So think about what is absolutely necessary. What is it that can keep my students engaged? What is it that can keep my students interested during this period of time? Can we break it into those little pieces and deliver those pieces? This is not going to last forever. Eventually, we're going to go back out. We may find a new way to do things, and we'll be able to cover the things that we were not able to cover. Right now, we just need to ensure that we keep our learners learning and interested and motivated. What that means is that when you're creating a timetable, it needs to be practical. So we encourage administrators, or we encourage teachers to communicate with administrators about ensuring that the timetable is not overwhelming for the students. For secondary schools, think about the fact that a Form 3 student might have something like 15 subjects to cover. Can you imagine having to do 15 subjects in a week? How much screen time that is going to require? Think about it in a home where a student has to share devices. It's not practical. So what about running half the subjects in one week and half the subjects in another week? That could work not just for the students, but also for the teachers. Because teachers who are doing week 1 then has week 2 to do some more planning. And then they come back on in week 3. So we're able to alternate. So it's something that we suggest, something that you can take to your administrators. And if you are an administrator, we suggest that you consider it. Well, we already spoke about synchronous classes. Remember, no more than 30 minutes. And when it comes to videos, the videos can't be too long. So an asynchronous video should be maybe 5 to 10 minutes, which is why I mentioned chunking earlier. Remember, this generation of students, their attention span is very short. They're accustomed to these little TikTok videos. Those videos are very short. So your 10-minute video is something that they're like, oh my gosh, what is Miss doing? So ensure that the video is not too long and that it's something that is interesting for them. There are many LMS options out there, and Leanne is going to share some of them for you later on, things like Moodle, Google Classroom, Class Dojo, that kind of thing. And those are things that we suggest you look into in terms of being able to interact with your students and creating an online classroom space if you are looking at going online.
So thank you very much for that. We have a couple of questions. Jacqueline, she says, do you have a recommendation for students based at a special needs school? Is there a body who caters to their curricular needs? That's a really excellent question, Jacqueline. And I have not seen a Caribbean specific element, but I have seen it discussed in other groups from the US and the UK. And I will definitely try to share some of those resources to see if they can be used. Maybe if you can message 21st century educators with the specific types of needs, we can do some research and get some of that information to you. Thank you, Brywick, for sharing a good resource for kids. So he has a link there, and I also shared a link above. Mirella, you both mentioned some very critical points here. Thank you for sharing these. And you're most welcome. And we really do want to emphasize that this is something new that we are all experiencing together. And I saw one teacher asked, what about if you're the one teacher who's responsible for all year groups? And for us, when we were thinking about this whole remote learning for the Caribbean context, we were saying that, you know, one of the issues we've had in Caribbean education is that we all tend to operate within our own classrooms. But this is a really great opportunity for teachers to share information. So we are all covering the same curriculum. If teachers are willing to share, we can look at ways to put it together, have a discussion forum for Caribbean teachers. I mean, there are possibilities out there that we can consider so that we can share materials that are Caribbean specific or that can be easily adapted for the Caribbean. Jacqueline, it's okay. At the end of the session, I will share a link where you can get all the things that we shared today. So you'll be able to get all the links at the end. Sean Eiffel says, love the point about chunking your content. And that is, again, very important when you are doing online learning. And in this particular case, even more so, where people are now getting accustomed, both teachers and students. So we're getting ready for step 5, social emotional learning. And this is in no way. Somebody asked if the MOE is still open for us to get specific info from. I do believe they are open, but we are not sure. So you could probably send an email via their Facebook page or a message via their Facebook page to find out.
I think they also have a contact. Sorry, they also have a contact on their website, an address that you can email, an email address.
Right, so step 5, social emotional learning. And this is by no means, in fact, it is one of the most important steps to consider during this time. If there are any administrators out there, we really want you to check in with your staff members. Remember that social emotional wellness is important for staff too. Many of our staff members may be undergoing difficult times, and telling them to just go into the class, go online and teach can be putting additional strain on them. Remember, we have persons who may have family members who have lost their jobs. Remember, we have persons who are going out into the field daily, so that aspect of fear and worry. We also have teachers who may be single parents who have now to treat with their children and still teach online. So administrators, we are really making a plug here. Check in with your teachers, not just to say how much have you taught, but just to ask them, how are you doing? So in terms of setting up a class, one of the first things we would want you to do when you are setting up, talking to your students, whether it is, just an address and so on, we want it to just be a check-in and asking them, how are you? Telling them that you've missed them because they are missing school. I recently did a poll on Edmodo and I checked in on my students, and a lot of them are saying they're not okay because they're missing school. And then take some time to get them accustomed to the tools. Just like you are feeling fearful and you are a little anxious, they are also, although they are accustomed to technology, but they're not necessarily accustomed to technology in this format. So we also want you to remember to connect with the wider school community. Remember, these children are accustomed coming to school, whether they have 300 other persons around them or 900 other persons around them. They're accustomed seeing people. So figure out a way to determine how you're going to stay connected with your community outside of the academic delivery. Whether you're going to ask them to post pictures, ask for videos, ask for poems, etc. And just before coming onto this live, I actually saw Bishop Anstey and Trinity College's sixth form. The students dressed up in their school uniforms, and they actually did an applause across the different, they put it together, edited a video, and they actually did a wonderful applause for our frontline workers today. And I think that is really important for their classmates to see them, to see what they're doing. We want you to also think about the uniqueness of this current season, COVID-19, into the classroom setting. Please don't ignore it. It is a reality. And we want you instead to probably use it in your teaching, leverage what is happening around it. So many of you would have been seeing all these challenges that are coming about because people are at home. So you would have the makeup or beauty challenges. You would have people are now posting their doubles or how to make fried chicken since KFC was closed. Use that in your classroom setting. Can you imagine an art teacher, telling students, well, show your blank canvas, and then of course the canvas turns into a wonderful painting? Or home economics, you certainly can challenge them to make their own doubles or make their own fried chicken or design a mask, paint something on it. We can have, again, the toilet paper rolls. I'm pretty sure the math teachers can find a way to integrate how to use toilet paper rolls. Or we can ask students, we are a creative bunch. So certainly we can use these TikTok challenges or any of the other challenges and get students interested in learning. Because remember, just like we would have done in the classroom, once students are interested in something, they're going to do it. You're not going to have to fight up with them to do it. We want to encourage frequent check-ins via polls if you're online surveys, phone calls, WhatsApp, whatever it is. If you haven't heard from students in a while or you haven't heard from your staff members in a while, please reach out to them. Do not assume that they're ignoring you. Do not assume that they are okay. And as a staff, certainly you can have groups that would be responsible for particular classes, particular students, particular staff members. And so the work is going to be a little lighter if everybody is in charge of a particular group. We want you to encourage peer-to-peer interactions. These students are accustomed having their friends next to them. Some of them are home, they're the only child, or they may have very young siblings or much older siblings, and they're just not accustomed spending all this time away from their friends. I'm sure many of us have had the experience where after July, August, these children are excited to come back to school. And not knowing when they're going to be able to be reunited with their friends is a stress in itself. Apart from the fact it's very difficult for a teenager to be indoors all the time. So even if you're having online classes, factor in that in your classroom where you allow them to collaborate, where you allow them to speak to each other. And of course, we really want to emphasize classroom management. You still have to have classroom management in an online setting. And that is why, as we mentioned before, you have to set rules. You have to not take for granted that students are going to transfer what they normally do in a classroom onto the online settings. So set your online rules. And of course, we can even encourage them to post things. But again, have rules. So they can use hashtags, they can post their pictures, they can create TikToks because they know how to do it. We have seen a few from our students, excellent editing skills. And so you just challenge them and they are able to do it.
Right. Thank you, Leanne. So that would be the end of the fifth step there. Are there any questions that we need to answer before we move on? So they were saying the human factor is critical. Yes. And then Michael Husbands. Nearly all experts firmly believe that teaching or training video should be as long as they need to in order to meet the learning objective. However, suggested 6 minutes is the optimal length. Yes, Michael. So 6 minutes could be the optimal length, and they can be as long. Well, we should stick to the optimal length, and that's why we discussed chunking also. So you can meet your learning objective, but you can break it up into two parts so that the video would not be too long because the students may not necessarily want to take a look at it. Leanne, you're going to share a graphic?
Yes. All right, and we just wanted to talk a little bit about this graphic. And again, we are going to share it. It says, don't think teaching, but do think interacting and connecting. Don't think what can they learn, do think what will bring joy. Don't think how can I fill the time, do think what will be most meaningful. Quality engagement is more important than quantity of activities. Children are in the middle of a world crisis. Let's bring a little joy. And that definitely was something, when I saw it, I thought was really significant and really a good reminder for teachers during this time.
Wonderful. So as we end off, one, thank you for joining us. We want you to remember that what is happening now is one step in our longer term plan. And while we are planning for what is happening now, we also need to plan for what do we do when schools reopen. We're going to need to ensure that we reacclimatize our students to the brick and mortar setting, but then don't go back to the old. We have to use the new experience, use the lessons that we are learning right now, the skills that we are developing right now, and take the opportunity to reimagine education in the region. There are many students who would not have, sorry, many teachers who would not have ever thought about teaching using an online platform. Many teachers who may not have thought about sending their students home with videos to watch on a flash drive if they don't have Wi-Fi. Many teachers who would have thought, okay, well, not all my students have Wi-Fi, not all my students have devices, so I'm not going to bother to think about a blended way of teaching. But right now we have no choice. We are doing it and we are getting it done. So when we go back out, when this pandemic is over, are we going to go back to the old way? I saw this post from Dwayne Reed, which I thought was so excellent. My hope is that our new normal today exposes what was wrong with our old normal yesterday and sets us up for a better normal tomorrow. And that's something that we really need to consider. I have never seen so much talk about the digital divide in my 11 years teaching as I am hearing about it right now. And we cannot go back to ignoring its existence when this is over. So I really do suggest that when this is over, we ensure that we come up with a better normal tomorrow, not just for our students, for our teachers, for the entire education system in the Caribbean.
Excellent. And we really hope that you use this plan. I'm going to share the link. What we have done is actually created the plan that is an editable file, and there are lots of questions that you can take to a virtual staff meeting. Administrators can use it, and it will be able to guide you on creating a plan that is specific to your school. And it can be found on the website that I'm going to share with you if you go onto the library. So please make sure, I've just shared it. Please make sure and copy this link, and you would be able to go into the remote learning plan resources, and you'll be able to get that. Thank you so very much. I'm seeing Sune asking, when are we going to do something on online platforms? Well, we will try to do something soon, but we also do encourage you to follow 21st Century Educators Facebook page, because we have posted lots of information, and we will also be adding information to that link, the resource library, and you will be able to get more information. Also, feel free to message us, because we will be, if there's a need, we will try to fill it as much as possible. And we really hope that as you go forward that you consider all of these things and really, and give us feedback, please. We want to know how your remote learning plan worked. If it worked, what were the weaknesses, what were the strengths? Because we do think that going forward, it will impact education positively. So thank you very much. Thanks for all the positive feedback.
Yes, thank you.
And if we don't have any questions or comments, so that would be it from us. So if anybody has any questions or comments or feedback, you can let us know. If not, you can also send us messages on the Facebook page as well. So I think we got all our questions in. So thank you very much. And we are very happy to have had a wide range of persons from the region. So please share. Feel free to share with your friends, with your colleagues, and the Facebook Live will also be available after this. So you can also share that information. So thank you very much.
Be
And
safe, everyone.
yes, and remember to check in with each other and check in with your staff. So that's it for us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
in life.